The envelope landed on Elena's kitchen table like a death sentence. Midnight black paper, sealed with silver wax bearing the crescent moon of the Shadowmere court. It smelled of pine and mountain air, the scent of the place that had nearly destroyed her. Elena stared at it, her hands trembling. 7 years. 7 years since she'd escaped that fortress with nothing but the clothes on her back and a secret growing in her belly. "Mama?" She spun around. Arya stood in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. At 7 years old, she was already striking, tall for her age, with a cascade of silver-white hair that caught the moonlight streaming through the window. Her ice-blue eyes, those impossible, damning ice-blue eyes, focused on the letter. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just mail. Go back to bed." But Arya's nose wrinkled. "It smells wrong. It smells like cold stone and lightning." She looked up at her mother, confused and a little afraid. "It smells like the dreams." Elena's blood ran cold. Arya had nightmares sometimes, dreams of a silver-haired man with eyes like hers, a man who turned away as she reached for him. Elena had always told herself they were just dreams, but wolves knew. Blood called to blood. "Back to bed, baby. I'll be there in a minute." Once Arya disappeared down the hall, Elena broke the silver seal. The letter was written on expensive parchment, the kind that screamed wealth and power. "You are hereby commanded by royal decree to attend the coronation ceremony of Her Royal Highness, Princess Lyanna Silvercrest, firstborn daughter and true heir to the Shadowmere throne. Your presence is requested to bear witness to the glorious continuation of the Silvercrest bloodline, a blessing the moon goddess bestows only upon the worthy. Standard royal pompousness." But then, at the bottom, written in Marcus's sharp, aggressive handwriting, "Come see what a real mate provides, Elena. See the daughter a true queen gave me, and remember your own inadequacy. I want you to witness everything you failed to be." The paper crumpled in her fist. The memory hit her like a physical blow, as vivid as if it were yesterday. 7 years ago. The great hall of Shadowmere. Elena had been 22, terrified, and so desperately in love she thought her heart might burst. The moon goddess had blessed her, a nobody from the small Riverstone pack, as the fated mate to Marcus Silvercrest, the newly crowned Alpha King. The mating ceremony had been beautiful. Marcus had been charming, attentive, everything she'd dreamed of. But after the ceremony, everything changed. He grew cold, distant. He needed an heir immediately to solidify his claim to the throne. There were rivals, challengers. He needed proof of a strong bloodline. After 4 months with no pregnancy, he started to pull away. After 6 months, he summoned her to the throne room. It was packed. Every alpha and beta of importance was there. Lord Castellan, Lady Margaret Ashwood, and her daughter Victoria, all the pack leaders of the Alliance. Elena had worn her finest dress, thinking perhaps it was some kind of celebration. "Elena Hayes." Marcus's voice had boomed through the hall, cold and formal. No warmth, no affection. Just her name, like an accusation. Dr. Harrison, the royal physician, stepped forward, holding a scroll. "My king, I have completed the lunar examination. The results are conclusive." Marcus's face had been carved from ice. "Speak." "She is barren, Your Majesty. Her womb is cursed. She will never bear children." The word barren echoed in the dead silence. It was a death sentence for Eluna. A worthless mate. Elena had grabbed Marcus's arm, panic flooding her. "No, Marcus, please, it's wrong. I feel different. I think I might be... We're mates. The goddess chose us." He'd looked at her hand on his sleeve with such disgust, as if she were something filthy. He shook her off violently. "A barren mate is no mate at all," he'd declared, his voice freezing her to her core. "She is a curse, a mistake." "Marcus, please. I, Alpha King Marcus Silvercrest, reject you, Elena Hayes, as my mate and Luna." The bond didn't just break. It shattered. The pain was a living, breathing thing. A white-hot blade twisting through her soul. Elena collapsed, screaming, clutching her stomach as agony ripped through every nerve. "Guards!" Marcus commanded, not even looking at her crumpled form. "Remove this failure from my sight. She is exiled from all Silvercrest territories. If she returns, she dies." Through her tears, Elena saw Victoria Ashwood glide forward, already sliding her hand into Marcus's arm, her smile triumphant. Lady Margaret watched with cold satisfaction. They dragged Elena out past the sneering courtiers, past the pitying stares, out into the wilderness beyond the territory borders. They left her there to die. What Marcus didn't know, what Elena had barely known herself, was that the nausea she'd been feeling wasn't from nerves or stress. She'd been 2 months pregnant with his child. Present day. The cabin. Elena stood at Arya's bedroom door, watching her daughter sleep. One child, not the multiple pups alphas usually produced, but one impossibly powerful, undeniably legitimate heir to the Silvercrest throne. Arya had manifested abilities at age 3 that most wolves didn't develop until puberty. She could manipulate shadows, move through darkness unseen, and her alpha aura, when she forgot to suppress it, could bring grown wolves to their knees. Elena had spent 7 years hiding her, training her, teaching her to mask her scent and her power. They'd lived as rogues at first, then Elena had built her own small pack in the Willow Creek territory. Outcasts and exiles who'd found refuge under her protection. She'd clawed her way from nothing to alpha. And now Marcus wanted her to come crawling back to watch him celebrate his true heir? Elena looked at the invitation again. "Remember your own inadequacy." A cold, dangerous smile spread across her face. "Oh, Marcus," she whispered to the empty room. "You want me to see your perfect family? You want to parade your daughter in front of the barren failure you threw away?" She walked back to Arya's room, gazing at her sleeping child. The silver hair, the Silvercrest features, the raw power that radiated from her even in sleep. Let's show them what inadequacy really looks like. But she couldn't walk in alone. Marcus's arrogance was his weakness, but his army was very real. She needed an ally. The journey to Iron Ridge territory took 3 days. Elena left Arya with Clara, her beta and closest friend, and traveled alone. Alpha Cade Blackthorn received her in his study. When she walked in, he stood so fast his chair toppled over. "Elena Hayes." His silver eyes were wide with shock. "By the goddess, we all thought you were dead." "Not dead, Cade. Just busy." She'd known Cade before her mating to Marcus. He'd been one of the few alphas who'd shown her genuine respect, who hadn't looked at her like a social climber when Marcus chose her. He'd also been one of the only ones in that throne room whose face had shown anger rather than contempt. "Busy?" Cade moved around the desk but stopped, keeping a respectful distance. Protocol was protocol. "Elena, what happened to you? After the exile, we heard nothing. Marcus spread word that you died in the wilderness. He would have preferred that." She laid the invitation on his desk. "But I survived. And I'm still surviving." Cade read the invitation, his handsome face contorting with disgust. "This is unspeakably cruel. He exiles you for being barren, and then summons you to watch him celebrate his heir? What kind of monster?" "The kind who deserves what's coming to him." Cade looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Elena took a deep breath. She'd kept this secret for 7 years. Not even Clara knew the full truth. But she couldn't do this alone. "The physician lied, Cade. I wasn't barren." He stared at her. She watched as understanding slowly dawned as he processed the timeline. 7 years since the exile. 7 years of silence. "No," he breathed. "You don't mean I was 2 months pregnant when Marcus rejected me." Cade gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. "A pup. You have his pup." "A daughter." Elena's voice was steady now, strengthened by years of survival. "Her name is Arya. She's 7 years old, and she has his eyes." Goddess almighty. Cade sat down hard. The political implications. Elena, does anyone else know? Just you. And now I need your help. She pulled a photograph from her jacket. Arya standing in a meadow, her silver hair catching the sunlight, her ice blue eyes staring directly at the camera with an intensity that was unsettling in a child. Cade studied the photo, and Elena watched the recognition flicker across his face. The silver hair, the eye color, the unmistakable Silvercrest features that had bred true for 1,000 years. She's legitimate, he whispered. She's his firstborn. His true heir. And he has no idea she exists. Cade was silent for a long moment, his strategic mind clearly racing through scenarios. If this becomes public knowledge, his entire reign is built on a lie? His marriage to Victoria? Their daughter's claim? Everything crumbles. Victoria! Elena's voice turned bitter. Tell me, does Marcus love her? Love? No, it's purely political. The Ashwood family brought him alliances with 3 neighboring territories. His marriage to Victoria secured his throne after his father's death. Cade shook his head. But he's cold to her, from what I hear. Dutiful, but distant. Good. Cade looked at her sharply. Elena, what exactly are you planning? I'm accepting his invitation. She met his gaze steadily. I'm going to walk into that coronation, and I'm going to show every alpha in that room exactly what Marcus threw away. I'm going to introduce them to the true Silvercrest heir. That's suicide. The moment you cross into his territory, not if I have protection, not if I come as the official guest of another alpha. She leaned forward. Cade, I'm asking you to escort me. As an ally. They won't dare touch me if I'm under your protection, not during a sacred ceremony with all the territories watching. Cade stood, pacing to the window. You're asking me to go directly against Marcus, to publicly support you. I'm asking you to stand for what's right. Marcus rejected his fated mate because a physician declared her barren. He didn't question it, didn't seek a second opinion because it was convenient. It gave him an excuse to marry for power instead of destiny. You think the diagnosis was deliberately false? I know it was. I was already pregnant, Cade. Either Dr. Harrison was incompetent, or he was paid to lie. Cade turned back to her. If it was a lie, if it was a conspiracy, Victoria's family would be the most likely culprits. Lady Margaret is one of the most ambitious women I've ever met. Having her daughter as queen, having a grandchild as heir to Shadowmere, that's worth any price. Exactly. And now Marcus wants to parade his perfect family in front of me. Elena's smile was sharp as a blade. I'm going to rip that illusion apart. I'm going to show them all what he rejected. And then I'm going to walk away and let him live with the consequences. He'll try to take Arya from you. Let him try. To claim her officially would be to admit he was wrong. To admit his entire marriage is a sham. His pride will never allow it. Cade studied her for a long moment. The broken girl from 7 years ago was gone. In her place stood an alpha. Hardened, strategic, dangerous. This is the most dangerous game you could possibly play, Elena. I know. Marcus will be enraged. Victoria will see you as a threat to everything she's built. Lady Margaret won't hesitate to have you killed if she can manage it. Which is why I need you. Cade looked at the invitation again, then at the photograph of Arya. He thought of Marcus's tyrannical rule, the heavy taxes, the brutal punishments. He thought of how the smaller packs lived in fear. This was a chance to introduce a check on Marcus's power, a chance to see justice done. Alpha Elena, he said formally, offering his hand. It would be my honor to escort you and your heir to Shadowmere. Let's go show that bastard exactly what the moon goddess thinks of his choices. Elena took his hand, and for the first time in 7 years, she felt something other than just survival instinct. She felt hope. 3 days later, Elena and Arya sat in Cade's finest carriage as it rolled toward the looming silhouette of Shadowmere Court. The fortress was carved from black stone, rising from the cliffs like a predator's teeth. Arya pressed her face to the window, her eyes wide. "It's scary, Mama." "Yes, baby, it is. That's why we're going to be very brave today." Arya wore a dress of deep green, Cade's pack colors, with a silver crescent moon pin at her throat marking Elena's personal sigil. Elena had dressed in practical black leather armor, her hair braided back severely. She looked nothing like the frightened girl who'd been dragged from this place 7 years ago. "Remember the rules?" Elena asked softly. Arya nodded seriously. "Stay close to you. Don't speak unless someone speaks to me first. Keep my shadows hidden. Don't let my scent out." She recited the lessons perfectly, but her hand trembled in Elena's. "Mama, will he hurt you?" "No, baby, not today. Not ever again." The carriage stopped in the grand courtyard. Cade opened the door himself, magnificent in his formal uniform, projecting an aura of calm, unshakable power. "The ceremony has already begun," he said quietly, helping them down. "Our timing is perfect." The massive oak doors of the great hall loomed before them. The guards moved to block their path. "The ceremony is sealed, Alpha Blackthorn. No admittance." Cade raised an eyebrow, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr. "I am escorting Alpha Elena of Willow Creek. She is here at the personal written command of your king." He produced the invitation. "Will you be the one to tell King Marcus that you defied his explicit decree?" The guards paled and stepped aside. The doors swung open. The great hall was exactly as Elena remembered, soaring ceilings, stained glass windows depicting Silvercrest victories, hundreds of wolves packed into the space. Every alpha and beta of importance was there, all facing the raised dais. And on that dais stood Marcus Silvercrest. Elena's breath caught despite herself. He was still devastatingly handsome, tall and broad-shouldered, silver-white hair falling to his shoulders, sharp features that could have been carved by a master sculptor. He wore a crown of white gold and his ceremonial armor. He looked like a god. Cold, untouchable, perfect. Beside him sat Queen Victoria in a throne-like chair, dressed in crimson silk. She was beautiful in a calculated way, every hair perfect, every gesture rehearsed. And in her arms, wrapped in white blankets, was a tiny bundle, Princess Lyanna. Victoria was beaming with smug, triumphant pride. Marcus was in the middle of a speech. For too long, this throne stood uncertain. For too long, we waited for the moon goddess to show her favor. There were mistakes. His voice was cold. False blessings. Failures that wasted precious time. Elena's hands clenched into fists. But the goddess sees all. She tests us, and when we make the right choices, when we choose strength over sentiment, she rewards us. Marcus raised his goblet. "She has blessed my union with Queen Victoria. She has given us a daughter, a true heir born of worthy blood. Princess Lyanna will carry on the Silvercrest name." His voice trailed off. His eyes had found the entrance. The entire hall turned to follow his gaze. Elena stood framed in the doorway, backlit by the fading sunlight. She was not the weeping, broken girl they remembered. She was harder, leaner, her dark leather armor a stark contrast to the opulent silks around her. Her hair was wild and loose. Her eyes held no fear. Only ice. Alpha Cade stood at her right, a clear political statement. And at her left stood a small girl with silver-white hair. The hall erupted in gasps and whispers. Victoria's voice cut through the noise, high and shrill. "What is the meaning of this? Guards, remove that. That creature. She is exiled. She has no right." But Marcus wasn't listening to his queen. He was staring at the small figure beside Elena. The child was too far away for him to see clearly, but something in the way she stood, the color of her hair. Elena began to walk forward. The crowd parted like water, creating a path down the center aisle. Her boots echoed in the sudden silence. Cade followed like a shadow, and Arya walked beside her mother, her small hand clasped tightly in Elena's. They walked past Lord Castellan, whose face showed shock. Past Lady Margaret Ashwood, whose expression flickered between confusion and something that might have been fear. They walked until they stood at the foot of the dais, directly below the king and queen. And now Marcus could see. Now everyone in the front rows could see. Arya lifted her chin, and her ice-blue eyes, the unmistakable silver-crest eyes that had defined the bloodline for a millennium, met the king's gaze. The genetic markers of the Silvercrest line were absolute. Silver-white hair and ice-blue eyes. It was a combination that had not been diluted in 1,000 years of breeding. Princess Lyanna, visible now in Victoria's arms, had her mother's brown eyes. Marcus's goblet fell from his hand. It hit the marble floor with a crash, red wine spilling across the white stone, like blood. His face, which had been cold and arrogant, drained of all color. He stared at Arya as if he'd seen a ghost. "What?" The word came out as a choked whisper. "What is this?" Elena smiled. It was the coldest, most terrifying smile anyone in that hall had ever seen. "You invited me to witness your blessing, Your Majesty." Her voice rang out clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the hall. "You invited the barren failure you rejected to come and see what a real mate provides. So here I am, and I brought my failure with me." She placed her hand on Arya's shoulder. "Marcus Silvercrest, I present to you your firstborn daughter, Arya Hayes, 7 years old, born in a freezing cave in the wilderness where you sent me to die." The hall went dead silent. Arya looked up at the king, and when she spoke, her voice was small but clear. "Hello, father." The word echoed like thunder. Victoria shrieked, nearly dropping baby Lyanna. "Lies! She's lying! It's a trick! She found some orphan and enchanted her somehow. They're not real. Those eyes aren't." "Aren't what?" Elena's voice cut through Victoria's hysteria like a knife. "Aren't Silvercrest? Shall we have every alpha in this room examine her? Shall we test her blood? Her scent?" Marcus couldn't speak. He was locked in a staring contest with the miniature version of himself, with eyes that were exactly like his own, like his father's, like every Silvercrest for 1,000 years. "But, Barren," he finally whispered. "Dr. Harrison said you were barren." "Yes, he did." Elena's gaze swept the crowd until it landed on a small, sweating man in healer's robes near the back. "Dr. Harrison, why don't you explain your diagnostic process to everyone? How did you determine my condition?" All eyes turned to the physician. He looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. His gaze darted desperately between Victoria and Lady Margaret. I performed the standard, the truth, doctor." Lord Castellan's voice boomed. "We're all waiting." Dr. Harrison's face crumbled. I was told." He looked at Victoria with pure terror. "Lady Victoria came to me before her marriage to the king. She said the king needed the Ashwood alliance, that Elena was an obstacle. She offered me gold, a lot of gold. And his voice dropped to a whisper, "she threatened my family." "Liar!" Victoria shot to her feet, clutching Lyanna. "He's a liar, an incompetent fool." "She told me to declare Elena barren," Dr. Harrison continued, his confession tumbling out in a rush. "She gave me poison. She wanted me to actually make it true, to damage Elena's womb so she could never conceive. But I couldn't. I'm a healer. I just lied in the report. I told Lady Victoria the poison had worked. I thought Elena would just be sent away, maybe demoted. I didn't know the king would—" He looked at Marcus. "I didn't know she was already pregnant. I swear by the goddess I didn't—" "No." The confession hung in the air, damning and complete. Victoria's face was white as bone. Lady Margaret had half risen from her seat, her expression caught between fury and calculation. Marcus moved slowly, robotically. He turned to Victoria, and his voice was terrifyingly quiet. "You did this." "For you!" Victoria's voice cracked with desperation. "Darling, it was all for you. She was nobody, a girl from nowhere. I gave you alliances, power, stability. I gave you everything." "Everything," Marcus repeated flatly. His eyes moved to the bundle in her arms, to the child he'd been celebrating. He took a slow, deliberate breath, and for the first time, he truly scented the baby. Every alpha's greatest sense was their nose. They could identify bloodlines, relationships, paternity with a single breath. Marcus had been so confident, so certain he'd never even checked. The baby smelled of Victoria, and of salt, and steel, and of Captain Drake, Victoria's personal guard, who stood white-faced behind her throne. The betrayal was so complete, so absolute, it was almost darkly funny. Marcus had rejected his true mate, his fated, goddess-chosen partner. He'd exiled his legitimate heir. He'd built his entire reign on this marriage, all for another man's bastard. He threw back his head and roared. It wasn't a roar of power or dominance. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated anguish, the sound of a soul being ripped apart. The sound shook the stones, shattered windows, and every wolf in the room dropped to their knees in submission. Every wolf except Elena. She stood tall, her hand on her daughter's shoulder, unbowed. The king's carefully constructed world was crumbling to ash around him. When Marcus's roar finally faded, the silence was deafening. "Guards!" His voice was hoarse, broken. "Take Dr. Harrison to the dungeons. Take Lady Margaret to the dungeons." Lady Margaret let out a shriek of protest as guards hauled her from her seat. "The Alliance! You can't! The Ashwood territories—" "The Alliance is broken," Marcus snarled. His gaze returned to Victoria, who had backed against her throne, clutching Lyanna like a shield. "And you," he whispered. "You destroyed everything." Captain Drake made the fatal mistake of stepping forward, hand on his sword. "My king, please." Marcus moved with supernatural speed. His hand closed around Drake's throat and there was a sickening crunch. The guard crumpled to the floor, dead before he hit the marble. Victoria screamed. "Guards!" Marcus commanded. "Take the queen to the dungeons. She will await trial for treason, adultery, and conspiracy to murder my mate." As Victoria was dragged away, still screaming, Marcus was left standing alone in the wreckage. His kingdom was in chaos. His queen was a traitor. His heir was illegitimate. And at the foot of the dais stood the woman he'd thrown away. He slowly turned to face Elena. The rage was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that remained was a hollow, devastated shell. "Elena," he whispered. He descended the dais steps and fell to his knees before her. "Elena, I didn't know. Please, I was blind. I was a fool. I was manipulated, but that's no excuse. His voice broke. "Come back, please. I'll make you my queen. We can fix this. We can be a family." The entire court held its breath. This was it. The moment every romantic tale promised. The rejected mate vindicated. The king penitent. The happy ending. But Elena didn't move. She looked down at the man who had called her worthless, who had thrown her into the wilderness to die, who had tried to erase her from existence. She felt the mate bond screaming at her to forgive, to heal the break, to make them whole again. And she felt nothing but cold, distant pity. A family? Her voice was quiet, but cut through the silence like a blade. Look around you, Marcus. A man lies dead at your feet. Your queen is in chains. Your throne is built on lies. And you dare speak to me of family? I didn't know. You didn't want to know. Her voice gained strength. Dr. Harrison's diagnosis was convenient for you. It gave you permission to marry for power, instead of love. You didn't question it, because you didn't want it to be wrong. That's not. Do you know what it's like to give birth alone? Elena's voice cracked. Screaming in agony in a cave, convinced you're dying, with no one to help you? No midwife? No pack? No mate? I delivered my own daughter by candlelight, Marcus. Our daughter. And you know what the worst part was? Marcus looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. The worst part was that even while I was in that agony, even while I thought I was going to die, I still loved you. I still hoped you'd come find me, that you'd realize the mistake and come save us. She laughed bitterly. How pathetic is that? Elena, please. You sentenced your own daughter to death before she was even born. What if I hadn't been strong enough? What if Arya had died in that cave? Would you have even mourned us? Marcus reached for her hand. Before he could make contact, Arya stepped between them. Don't touch my mother, she said, her small voice filled with fierce protectiveness. For just a moment, shadows flickered around the 7-year-old's form. Raw, uncontrolled power leaking through her careful restraint. Marcus stared at his daughter, really saw her for the first time. The strength in her stance, the protective fury in her eyes, the power radiating from her small frame. She was protecting her mother. From him. We're not yours to reclaim, Elena said softly. You made your choice 7 years ago. You chose power over destiny. You chose political alliance over the mate bond. You chose Victoria. You're my mate. No, I was your mate, past tense. Elena turned her back on him, on the throne, on everything she'd once dreamed of. Cade, we're leaving. Wait! Marcus scrambled to his feet. She's my daughter! My heir! She belongs here. Elena turned slowly. The look in her eyes would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. She belongs to me. I'm the one who raised her. I'm the one who protected her. I'm the one who didn't throw her away for political gain. Her voice rose, addressing the assembled alphas. Her name is Arya Hayes, not Silvercrest. I forbid it. I'm the king. That's my bloodline, my heir. You're a king with no queen and no legitimate heir, Elena corrected. She looked at the crowd. You all witnessed the truth today. A king so desperate for power that he believed a convenient lie. A king who rejected the moon goddess's gift. A king who threw away his true mate and his firstborn child. She pulled Arya close. This child carries the true Silvercrest bloodline, but she will never be raised by a man who breaks sacred bonds, who rules by fear, who values power over love. She met Marcus's eyes one final time. You wanted to mock me? You wanted me to witness your perfect family? Fine. I witnessed it. I watched your queen get arrested. I watched your heir revealed as a bastard. I watched your kingdom crumble. And now I'm leaving. She turned and began walking toward the doors. Cade fell into step beside her, and Arya held tight to her mother's hand. Stop them! Marcus roared at his guards. That's my daughter, my blood. Stop them now! The guards moved forward, but Cade's voice stopped them cold. Touch them, and Iron Ridge declares war on Shadowmere within the hour. His voice promised violence. A war you cannot win, Marcus. Not now. Not with your alliances shattered, your legitimacy questioned, and your kingdom watching. Marcus froze. He was trapped, broken, powerless. He could only watch as Elena, his fated mate, his only chance at true happiness, walked out of the great hall, taking his entire legacy with her. The massive doors closed with a boom of finality. The rejected Luna had just walked away with the future of the kingdom. The carriage rolled through the night, putting distance between them and Shadowmere. Arya had fallen asleep, exhausted, her head in Elena's lap. Cade rode alongside, his face grim. He won't let this go. I know. The mate bond will drive him mad. He'll come for her. For you. Let him try. Elena's voice was steel, but her hand trembled as she stroked Arya's hair. "He can't claim her officially without admitting everything. His marriage was a sham. His reign is built on lies. He wronged his true mate. His pride will never allow it." His pride was already shattered tonight. A desperate man is dangerous, Elena. I'm dangerous too. He seems to have forgotten that. Cade was quiet for a moment. "Where will you go? You can't return to Willow Creek. He knows where it is now." "I don't know yet. Come to Iron Ridge." It wasn't the first time he'd made the offer. "As my guest, my ally. Arya needs proper training. The power I felt from her tonight was extraordinary. She'll need a strong pack, skilled teachers. She'll need protection." Elena looked at him. Cade Blackthorn was everything Marcus wasn't. Honorable, just, kind. He'd risked his political standing to escort her today. He'd stood against a king for her. "For the winter," she finally said. "We'll stay through the winter, and then we'll see." Cade nodded, satisfied, and rode ahead to scout the road. Elena looked down at her sleeping daughter, the true Silvercrest heir. But Arya would be raised with the heart of a Hayes. She would be taught strength and compassion. She would learn that power meant nothing without honor. She didn't know what the future held. Marcus was a shadow that would haunt them. There would be more battles, more challenges. He was broken now, but a broken king was the most dangerous kind of enemy. But for the first time in 7 years, Elena wasn't afraid. She'd walked into the place of her greatest humiliation and burned it to the ground. She'd turned Marcus's mockery into his ruin. She'd shown every alpha in the kingdom what he'd thrown away. She was nobody's reject, nobody's failure. She was Alpha Elena Hayes. She was the mother of the true heir, and she held all the cards. The carriage rolled on into the darkness, carrying the future of the Silvercrest line away from the cold, empty throne, toward an uncertain but free dawn. Marcus Silvercrest had wanted to break her. Instead, she'd shattered his entire world. And the story was far from over. This was just the beginning.